Good afternoon, everyone. It is Wednesday, March 2nd. And how the heck is it March already? And yes, I understand how time works. And I know I seem to say that almost every time, but wow, time seems to be going so fast. I wonder if you feel that more when you get older, if that's possible. So, I don't know. I guess if there are any of you who are around my age in your 40s or 50s, let me know that if you feel like time is going faster too. But anyway, it's 3 o'clock p.m. It is time for Women in Business. And today it's just me. So you get to listen to me rattle on about a subject that is actually pretty important to me. And one of the reasons that I chose this subject is because it just feels like there's a lot of crap going on in the world right now. And there's a lot of crap going on in our country right now. And there's a lot of crap going on in our social media spheres. And there's just a lot of stuff. And what I want to talk about today is how we can all do our part to ignore the loud car that just went by. Um, how we can all do our part to make things a little better, to make an impact on our world writ small, which is our community we live in, or our world writ big, which is helping with something like the war in Ukraine or whatever it is that we do. And this is something I'm pretty passionate about because I really believe that everybody has the capacity to help and to make a difference and to put good out into the world. One of the things I say a lot in interviews when I talk about this show is one of the reasons that the show started is because at the time I was considering doing this, COVID was happening and I was looking around and thinking, wow, there's a lot of really sad and scary things happening right now. What is something good that I can put into the world? And I thought, well, maybe a show where I interview women that's positive and that tells positive stories and maybe educates people and teaches them and makes them think would be something positive that I could do. So I gave it a shot. This is, by the way, and I counted them a few days ago and I was kind of shocked. This is the 72nd episode of Women in Business. So I'm pretty proud of that, honestly. 72 is kind of a lot. So that made me happy. I don't know why. I guess it proves I can start something and stick with it. There's been enough people interested that have wanted to watch 72 episodes. I don't know. Anyway, makes me happy. Not what we are here to talk about today, though. And see, this is the danger that you have when we do a show where it's just me. I get rambly sometimes. But I do want to talk about taking action today. And I do want to talk about how you can take action. And one of the ways that you can do that, oops, I see there are comments. Cindy, thank you for being here. Cindy probably gets the badge for the most consistent listener to this show. I think she's probably heard almost every episode. And thank you for the congratulations. I really do appreciate that. But anyway, getting back to my subject. So you're looking around and you're going, okay, I'd like to make a difference in the world. I see things that I don't particularly like, or I see things that I wish were different or better, or I just want to put more positive energy out in the world. How do I do that? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. So I'm really glad you asked that question. The first thing to do is decide what your issue or issues are. Are you worried about animal welfare? Do you want to maybe volunteer at an animal shelter? Are you worried about helping children or orphans or people victimized by war and you want to do a fundraiser or make a donation to help the Ukrainians or other victims of territorial disputes or wars or police actions or whatever they're calling them these days? Do you feel strongly about the government in your town and you don't think they're doing as good a job as they could be? Maybe you want to run for town council or the planning committee or whatever it is. So the first thing you really need to do is look around and see what matters to you. Maybe it's literacy, maybe it's education, maybe it's women's rights, maybe it's LGBTQ rights, maybe it's any number of things. I mean, you got to know there's 5 million issues out there. So you just need to really decide which one is your issue and which one or ones do you really care about. And there is a caveat here. It's really easy to look around and see so many things and you want to do all of them. And the thing is, you also have to be aware that you have a life and you have other things you have to do, and you're probably running a business, and or you're taking care of children, or you're caretaking for your parents, and you need to have time for yourself. So you need to be realistic about what you can do. But everybody can do something. And I think that's the first thing that I want to get out there. Everybody can do something. It doesn't have to be a show. It doesn't have to be 15 hours a month. It can be an hour a week, or it can be 5 minutes where you donate money to a cause that you care about. So decide what your things are. Decide what the things are that you're really concerned about. If it's, the ecology of the earth, or climate change, or cleaning up your beaches, or whatever it is, pick an issue, just one. Just start with one and do something about it. And that's the thing that I really, 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 really want to emphasize here is it's not about necessarily picking the issue. It's about actually doing something that impacts that issue. And the reason that I'm emphasizing this, and this is no shade to anybody who's doing these things, but they're, especially since the advent of social media, but even before that, there's this kind of feeling that if you post a icon or something in support on your profile, you're doing something. If you put up a post in support of, like, I've seen a gazillion posts supporting the Ukrainians and the war and rooting for them and wishing them the best and hoping they win and all that kind of stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. Where the problem comes is when you conflate that with actually doing something to help the cause. The example that I always give on this, and again, not throwing shade on anybody who has done this or who may have done this in the past, it's a very well-meaning thing and the intentions are good. But there used to be, some years ago, I haven't seen it as much lately, this idea that we'll dramatize the plight of the homeless by sending a bunch of upper middle class college kids to sleep outside for a night. And I would always look at that and I think, first of all, pretty much everybody knows that there are homeless people. So it's not really like people are going to walk over you on your cardboard mat for a night and go, oh my God, there are homeless people? I never knew that. So dramatizing the plight of the homeless isn't really helping the homeless. And honestly, if you sleep on cardboard for a night and then you go back home the next day and climb into your comfy bed after you've had a bath and a meal, then you haven't really done a whole lot. If you want to help the homeless, teach somebody to read, help somebody get an education, donate to a homeless shelter, work at a homeless shelter, clean out your closet and donate unused clothing or unused home goods. Get on your local planning council and help change the laws about where housing can go or who gets income help for housing. All those things are actually making a difference. They're actually making a material difference and changing things. So there's a lot of ability to, I guess, do nothing and feel like you're doing something. And again, no shade on anyone. Posting in support of Ukraine on social media at least shows that you're paying attention. And that is something. But posting in support of Ukraine on social media and putting a link to a charity that's actually getting food to kids over there or getting support to women over there or, helping the effort in some way, that's a little more productive. that's a little more helpful. So that's one of the things that I really wanted to touch on here because I see this a lot. It's really easy to kind of pat yourself on the back for some of the things that are very simple to do. And like I said, something is better than nothing. Acknowledging that there's a war and we should care about it is better than not. That's true. But look for ways that you can actually materially, physically impact what's happening in some way that will benefit the people who need the help or the organizations that need the help. Either way, that's all I'm saying. I mean, the feel good stuff is nice and it does make you feel good. You feel like, wow, you really did something. But honestly, the time and effort you put into doing something that actually materially benefits the people who need the help is going to mean so much more to them, and in the long run I think it's going to mean so much more to you too. So that's just something that I wanted to put out there, which is when you're picking your issues, look at how you can materially support these issues, what you can do to have an impact. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't post on social media. It doesn't mean you shouldn't talk to people about these issues. It doesn't mean you shouldn't have a bumper sticker or whatever. All that stuff is support too, but don't stop there, is what I'm saying. If you really care about the issue, make an effort to do something that has a material impact. And, the rest of it is just gravy. So I did want to put that out there. Now, another thing I want to talk about, another thing that people will say a lot when they're thinking about how can I do something is I don't have time. Like I said, I run a business. I have kids. I'm taking care of my parents. I'm helping out my aunt and uncle. I am volunteering at my kids' school. I play volleyball 3 nights a week. I like pickleball. I need time for, to relax and I have mental health issues I'm dealing with. I have chronic illness issues I'm dealing with. I have a number of things that have an impact or are barriers maybe toward doing something, toward volunteering, toward helping on the issue that I've chosen. So here's the tip on that one. It doesn't have to be huge and showy. You don't have to give 10 hours a month. You don't have to walk in a march. You don't have to even necessarily go to a place and do something. You can donate money. You can mail flyers. You can make phone calls. You can, if you're a writer, you can write something. If you're a designer, you can make a graphic. You can do things that are beneficial and helpful and useful, but that don't take 5 years to do. And this is a lot of people when they get into volunteering or when they find a cause that they really care about, they tend to go way overboard because they really want to jump in with both feet and they really care and they're passionate and they're concerned. And that's lovely and that's wonderful. But what happens is when you run at these things full tilt, you burn yourself out because you do have all the other responsibilities. So you have to look at your schedule when you're also figuring out what you can do and decide what is realistic for you to be able to commit to. I can walk dogs for 1 hour a week at my local humane society. I can go play with the cats for an hour a week at my local humane society. I can work one Sunday a month for 3 hours at my local food kitchen. I can commit to buying 1 extra bag of groceries and donating it to my local food pantry once a month. Figure out what you can do with the resources that you have. And keep in mind, your resources are your skills, they're your time, and they're your money. So what can you do with those 3 things? And also keep in mind that you may think donating $5 a month to somebody is a waste of time. They don't, because if they get enough people who can donate $5 and do it every month, then they make their operating budget. So just because you can't donate $10,000 or just because you can't give 20 hours a month, don't think that what you have to offer isn't enough or isn't going to make an impact. Start small. If you care about ecology, if you care about the state of our planet, start growing a container garden. Doesn't have to be a huge garden where you till, 6 acres in your backyard. It could be 3 pots on your porch. That's something. Or commit to cleaning your local beach or your local park, or commit to creating a graphic for a local stop litter program. You can find things to do. In my community, one of the things that I think is really awesome is our local United Way actually has a website that has volunteer opportunities on it. And you can sign up and you tell them your skill set, you tell them what you're interested in, you tell them how much time you have, and then they show you the opportunities that fit within your parameters. Now, this is pretty simple because all the people that need help are right here in this one place, and they're showing you opportunities that fit what you tell them you can do and what your interests are and what your skill set is. So it's a really sweet little thing. And I mean, granted, not every community is going to have this, but I'm guessing if you Google Google, now I can't say it. If you search volunteer opportunities in my community, whatever your community is, then you're probably going to find a list of places that need help. And I'm guessing one of those places and one of those opportunities is going to mesh with your particular interests or concerns and is going to have a time requirement or a skills requirement that you can do. So make the effort. Even if you don't have a lot of time, even if you're shy, even if you're not really comfortable meeting new people or whatever it is, make the effort, because every little bit of good that you put out there in the world is good that benefits everybody. And let's face it, people, after the last couple of years and after everything that's been going on, we need as many people as possible putting good into the world. We really, really do. Because things are kind of dire right now. There's a lot of stuff going on in a lot of places, and we're kind of forgetting the fact that we're all human beings, it feels like a little bit. And I feel like we need to start working on getting that back. My personal opinion, you can agree with me or not. I'm sure some of you won't. The next thing you can do is speak up. Talk about the issues that you care about. Talk about why you care about them. Be vocal. Talk about how you can fix the things that you see are wrong, that you think are wrong. Now, the danger in this and why a lot of people don't speak up is because they're afraid that people aren't going to agree with them. They're afraid that people aren't going to like them. They're afraid that they may transgress against some kind of taboo that they don't even know. And yeah, I knew my voice was going to go all craggy today. Sorry, guys, it happens. But I'll tell you, when I was working at Enmart, those many years, the management of the company was more conservative than me, which, okay, isn't surprising. I don't think there's many people who are going, oh, she's a liberal? No, because, big shock. But I was considerably more liberal than a lot of the people that worked where I worked. So I just made it a rule, because I worked with these people, that I didn't discuss my beliefs. I didn't really like that, honestly. But I also had my reasons for it. And what I learned from that was that I don't have a problem. Everybody believes what they believe. And yes, I tend to be on the more liberal side of things. I have friends who are conservatives. I have family that's conservative. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. And I'm willing to have discussions with anybody who wants to have a discussion with me. And I'm willing to try and learn why you believe what you believe if it's not what I believe. And sometimes you might change my mind. I've actually had friends who said they liked having discussions with me because I would ask why and admit that they made a good point. So I think it's important that more of us do speak up and speak up in a way that isn't belligerent, that isn't, I'm right and you're a piece of shit if you don't agree with me, but speak up in a way that these are the things that I care about and here's why I care about them. These are the things that I think are important and here's why I think they're important. And that's why I speak up so much on women's issues. That's why there's Sisterhood Saturday in the Women in Garment Decoration group. That's why, because that's an issue that I think is important. That's an issue that I think needs a little more light on it. That's an issue that our industry could do better about. And I care about that. And it matters to me. And I think it's something where maybe I can do a little bit that'll make a difference. And that's not to say that everybody who thinks we're fine or everybody who thinks that we don't need to change anything or, everybody who thinks that, advocating for women's issues is silly in this day and age, that they're wrong and I'm right. It just means we believe different things. And we'll talk about this a little later, so I don't want to get into it too much now, but there is an idea of civil discourse. And like I said, we'll talk about this later, so put a pin in that. But basically what that means is just being able to talk to people who have differing opinions and just be able to talk. It's a real interesting concept. Like I said, we'll get to that a little later. But on the speak up part of it, this can be posting things on your social media. Now, if you're running a business, please be aware that if you're posting opinions about controversial subjects on your social media, you are potentially negating part of your possible customer base. For some people, they don't care. For some people, that's fine. For other people, they prefer not to bring that stuff into their business profiles. Also be aware that if you are the owner of a business and you think your personal profile is personal and your customers will never find it, you're completely wrong. So that is something that you need to know. For some people, that doesn't matter. For other people, it matters a lot. So you need to make a judgment call on that for yourself. And neither option is right or wrong. If you care strongly about an issue and it's divisive and you decide that you're not worried about that, go for it. If you feel like you'd rather have as large a customer base as possible and controversial issues are just not where you want to go, cool, don't. Either way. But, keep in mind social media isn't the only way and the only place where you can speak up. You can go to your local planning council meetings if it's something in your local area. You can write a blog post. You can write a letter to the editor. You can do all that stuff. There are a lot of things you can do if you want to. You just have to make the commitment to talk about the things that you care about. I talk about women's issues a lot because that's something that's important to me. I talk about sexual abuse and trauma because I think we could do way better than we do in helping people deal with that stuff and in prosecuting it. I talk about mental health issues because that's another area where I think we need to do better than we're doing. These are important things. We need to do better. And so I talk about these things. I understand not everybody's comfortable with that. I understand that not everybody is willing to put controversial opinions out there. If you're not, you're not. And that's, it's everybody's personal comfort level and it's everybody's personal desire, I guess, to, you make an impact how you want to make an impact. But speaking up is one of the most basic things you can do. And it's also can be potentially one of the most world-changing things you can do. And also keep in mind, speaking up doesn't have to be educating people about an issue necessarily. It can just be speaking up when you see something happening that you think is not kosher. If you see somebody being harassed, if you see somebody being picked on for their religion or their ethnicity or their sexual preference or whatever it is, call it out, speak up about it, because the more we stop letting this stuff be normal and the more we stop letting this stuff happen without being challenged, hopefully the less it happens. So speaking up, use your voice. And I also want to add a caveat to this. Part of speaking up, this is your 5-second PSA, is voting. Hi, voting. So keep that in mind. Your vote does count. I know there's all this controversy about elections and blah, blah, blah. You know what? Vote anyway, because it matters, because it's important. Because if you really care, make your voice heard, and your vote is one way to do that. So there's that. Another thing you can do to take action is to shop ethically. And by shopping ethically, I mean know the values and the actions of the companies that you shop with. Know what they're about, know what they support, know how they treat their employees if that's possible to know that. And for most companies in this day and age, it is possible to know that. Look for fair trade products. A lot of products are sourced now so that the people who make them that are in what they call the third world countries are making a living wage, and there are safety practices involved. Now, I get it. There are times when, you know what, Walmart's just your best option, or Amazon is just your best option, or you don't have the 5 hours to do the research to figure out all this stuff. But there's more and more information and more websites out there that are spotlighting companies that are working to do ethical production, that are working to make ethical products. So spend a little extra time and figure out what some of those companies are and try to divert some of your money to those companies. And the other half of this is, if you own a business, what can you do to be an ethical shop? What can you do about the supplies you use? What can you do about the ecologically friendly practices that you could have? How many of these things can you implement without costing yourself a huge amount of money or time? And how important is this to you? Sometimes it's not going to be important at all, but I got news for you. It may be important to a good portion of your customer base. This is becoming if it wasn't already, it is now becoming a thing. People are starting to care, largely because a lot of really good journalists and magazines and news shows have really brought some of these things to light. And the more that you learn about this stuff, the factory that collapsed in Bangladesh and all the people that died, and the unsafe practices in a lot of countries, the fact that a lot of people are working for wages that are not even subsistence wages, that they're making almost nothing, and the companies that are selling the products they make are making a ton. And so there are companies and people out there that are working with indigenous peoples, that are working with underserved populations, or maybe populations that don't have all the manufacturing capabilities yet, to try to help them do better, to try to help them get a leg up. And I think that's important. So if you can buy products from these companies and these stores that are doing that stuff, then you can help support their work, and you can help support these communities that maybe do need a leg up, or these countries, or these indigenous populations, whatever it is. And again, this for some people, this is like, oh, this is crunchy granola stuff, please. It's not, though, because this matters, because income disparity and educational disparity and infrastructure disparity are things that could have a huge impact on this world a lot sooner than we think. So helping to address some of that imbalance is a good thing. And if you can do it without really making a huge effort, then that's something that you should do, I think. Now, I'm not sitting here saying I'm perfect at this, because I'm really, really not. Um, I try. I try to be more aware of who I'm buying from. I try to support smaller businesses. I try to support fair trade. I try to be more aware of this kind of stuff. I don't always get it right. And I order from Amazon just like everybody else does because sometimes it's just the easiest thing to do. So I'm not saying I'm like a paragon of virtue here. I'm just saying we all need to be more aware of this. And here's the nice thing about a lot of this stuff that I'm talking about today. Just being aware and making an effort is going to make a huge difference. If we all were just a little more aware and if we all made just a little more effort, we could make a huge difference overall because there's a lot of us. What, 7 billion people on the planet now? Or whatever it is, I don't even know. And I don't even know how many are in America, which is sad. I should know that. But anyway, if we all just tried a little harder to be a little more aware of this stuff, if we all did a few extra minutes of research, if we all were a little more concerned with shopping ethically, with buying ethically, with sourcing ethically, with ethically made products and ethical methods of production, we could make a difference in the lives of a lot of people. We could make things better for a lot of people. So I get this stuff is like, man, I don't want to have like a 5-hour thing every time I want to buy a shirt. I get that. I do, because I don't either, honestly. But I think there are ways now where you can Google ethically made clothing, where you can Google ethically sourced chocolate or whatever it is. And you can find companies that are doing this stuff. And yeah, maybe sometimes it's going to cost a little more. Maybe sometimes you're going to decide, you know what? I just want my Reese's peanut butter cups and that's what I want. And there's nothing wrong with that either because, the people at Mars or Hershey or whoever have to make their money too. And they have employees to pay and they have companies to keep running. But if you just try every once in a while to maybe buy from somewhere new or to support someone who's making an ethically sourced product or to support someone who's getting their products from an indigenous population, if we all just make a little more effort to shop ethically, then I think we could see big changes and make a big difference for some people who really kind of need some help. So, something to really think about. The next thing, and I think this is a big one, but then I'm a huge advocate of learning and I'm also from a long line of teachers. So learning was always like the guiding star in my particular household when I was growing up and amongst my relatives still to this day. So keep learning, learn about the issues. And when I say keep learning, I also want to put this little nugget of thought out there, which is learning doesn't necessarily mean reading only the things that agree with whatever you agree with. And for a lot of us today, it's really easy to get caught in this bubble of I'm only going to watch the things that talk about the issues in a way that I agree with. I'm only going to read the writers or the commentators or the magazines that talk about the issues in a way that I agree with. I don't want to hear what the other side is saying. I think the other side is stupid or misguided or evil or whatever it is, or insufferably smug or whatever it is, and I don't want to know what they're doing. Unfortunately, that's probably the wrong way to go about it. I'm just going to be honest here. Because if you're just reinforcing what you already think you know, you're never learning anything new. And also, knowing what the opponents or what the opposing viewpoint on an issue is can be helpful because sometimes you realize there were things you didn't think about. Sometimes you realize that what you thought was a bunch of crackpot stupidity is actually fairly well thought out and smart. Sometimes you realize that maybe you need to dig deeper into this issue because there were things that you didn't think about. And it's also the other thing that I want to say in this particular topic of learning is that it's also beneficial to learn stuff that isn't necessarily about you, I guess is what I want to say. And I understand that's a little kind of an odd way to say it, but read history of a race that isn't yours, or a religion that isn't yours, or an ethnicity that isn't yours, whatever word you want to use there, or a country that isn't yours. Spend time learning about something that isn't from your genetics or your ancestral background. Learn about things that maybe don't have any connection to you. Like, I'll give you an example, and this is just something that I do because it's interesting, but I have been reading a lot about Black history in books and biographies and things, mostly written by Black writers. And the reason that I started doing this is because I realized that I read a book which was written by a white writer, but it was a really good book, a book by David Halberstam called The Children, which was about the civil rights movement in the 60s and the young people, the 50s and 60s, and the young people who were the main movers of this movement. And I did not know what these people went through and how influential they were, and really what they survived and what they managed to do. And reading this book kind of made me realize that, wow, I knew really very, very little about the history of Black people in this country and what slavery meant and how the Black population moved over time and all that kind of stuff. I didn't really know it. We were taught the basics, sort of, kind of, maybe in school, but I didn't really understand it. So I started looking for writers and books that had been recommended to try to learn things. And it's been really, really interesting. I did the same thing with Judaism because I wanted to learn about Jewish history and how the Jewish religion was formed. And it's a sad history in a lot of ways, but there's also, you can learn a lot from how the Jews have adapted and what they've done over the centuries, and also how they were treated and why that matters. Now, again, won't say I'm perfect on any of this. There's still a lot I have to learn, and I understand that. But learning and reading and trying to grasp a viewpoint that is something, as I've said before, it's probably not a politically correct thing to say, but I'm like the whitest white woman ever. Obviously, but spending time trying to understand a viewpoint that is something that I will never actually physically be able to understand because I'm not Black or Hispanic or Jewish or whatever it is, but I can learn from what they're putting out there. I can learn from what these writers are telling me. I can learn from the experiences that are being written about. And it's not always comfortable. Sometimes it's kind of maddening. Sometimes it makes me squirm a little bit because sometimes I have to look at things and go, wow, have I done that? Or wow, if I had been in this time period, would I have been one of the people who was being a jerk? And you have to really look at that. So learning isn't always comfortable, and I don't think it always should be. But I think we all need to challenge what we think we know. And we all need to go outside our comfort zone, and we all need to try to understand people who aren't us. Because what that does is, if you have a basis of understanding, or if you have and I don't want to say understanding, I guess that's the wrong word. If you have a basis of knowledge, if you have some facts at your disposal, then you can have discussions with people who are of that race or that religion or that sexual preference, and be able to speak in a way that is at least borderline knowledgeable. And that's a step in the right direction. Now, granted, the other half of this is, if you want to keep learning and you want to have these conversations, you're going to have to sit and listen to. And you're going to have to listen with an open mind. And that's hard for some people because nobody wants to believe that they were ever part of an oppressive class. Nobody wants to believe that they were ever racist or sexist or prejudiced against a certain religion or whatever it was. You don't want to believe that. And, a lot of it is, I don't even know what the word is I want. A lot of it happens underneath the surface and you may not even realize that you're absorbing things. So keep learning, keep asking questions, keep being curious, keep challenging what you think you know and what you believe. Ask why you believe things. And yeah, this is all work, but it's fun work and it's good work. And what it does in the end, we hope, is make more well-rounded people. So that's really, I think, the benefit there. And it's just fun. I don't know. I like to learn. I like knowledge. I like knowing stuff today that I didn't know yesterday. I've always been kind of a knowledge nerd, a word nerd, I guess, for lack of a better term. So I think learning's fun, and I think it's beneficial to learn about experiences that aren't yours. Because the more you learn about other people in the world, the more you start building a foundation for perhaps understanding. And the more you can also be a better ally for groups that maybe need allies. That's not a bad thing either. So think about all that. So that's my pitch for learn more stuff today. And then we have donate responsibly. Now, in this category, I do want to highlight a couple of organizations. This is charitynavigator.org is one, and give.org is the other. Now, charitynavigator.org is an independent website that will give you the rundown on a charity, whether it's a good charity, how they spend their money, what the salaries are, where the money goes, all that kind of stuff. Give.org is from the Better Business Bureau, and it does something similar. And the reason why I'm pointing these out is because there are a lot of people out there asking for money all the time. And I think we've seen it with the war in Ukraine. There's a lot of sites that pop up and say, donate money to help the children of Ukraine, or buy my product and we're donating all the money to this particular charity in Ukraine or whatever. And that's a lovely sentiment. The problem is, in this day and age, unfortunately, and this is not a new thing, it's just maybe easier to do now than it used to be. It's super, super easy to set up a website and look like a charity and say, yes, all the money's going to blah, blah thing, and then take all the money and none of it gets to the people that it's supposed to get to. So you really need to just be aware that when you donate money to something, that you're donating it to a charity that is going to use it in a responsible manner. And like I said, you can go to charitynavigator.org, you can go to give.org, you can research the charity before you donate. Now, again, I'm not implying that most charities are crooked. I'm not saying that your money won't be used in the right way, but I'm just saying, look it up. Find out how their money is spent. Find out what percentage of donations are actually going to help the people that the charity says they're going to help. There have been stories, I'm sure you've seen them, of charities, rather well-known ones, where the person running the charity was making several $100,000s a year, and their salary was coming out of the donations. You want to look at that kind of stuff, because honestly, I don't need to donate so somebody can have a Range Rover. I want to donate and know that most of my money is going to the people who need it. And it's the same thing. It's also something that happens in our industry quite a lot. You'll see people who will say, I'm donating 10% of the proceeds from the sale of this particular product to this particular cause. or we're making shirts for this particular cause. The Here for Good campaign that happened when COVID started. And I think those programs are great, but I also think that, again, you need to be sure that how am I going to be able to see where this money goes? How are you keeping track of the money? How is this all being set up? Because we all know it, as much as we don't like to admit it. There are people in the world who are crooks, for lack of a better word. And you need to be sure that your money is going to do what you're being told it's going to do before you donate. So ask the questions. And if the person that's running the event or running the sale gets annoyed by you or won't give you good answers, then don't give them your money. That's simple enough. Because if you're responsibly running a charity, you're going to want the people who are donating to know where the money goes, how it's being used, what their donation will actually do. And keep in mind that donations don't necessarily have to be money either. You can donate items that you no longer need, clothing, computers, sports equipment, whatever it is. There are places that can use all that stuff too. And again, you can go on their websites and find out what they'll take, what condition it needs to be, all that kind of stuff. I have a huge pile, honestly, of clothing that is sitting in my closet right now that I need to bag up and take to Goodwill. And I went on the Goodwill site ahead of time to see what the condition it needed to be in, what sort of things they took. And I'm putting together a huge pile of stuff that's all going to go to Goodwill probably in the next couple weeks, because it's stuff that I either don't use anymore or stuff that doesn't fit me anymore. And some of it is almost brand new. So they can sell it in their shop. They can use it for homeless donations, whatever they want to do. I don't care. But I took the time to figure out, what do they actually need? What is going to be useful to them? Because a lot of people are, oh, I got to clean out the house. I'm just going to, get rid of all the junk I don't want and take it to Goodwill. Well, Goodwill may not want it. And you have to keep in mind that what you donate to Goodwill, they have to sort and process and figure out what to do with. And that takes time and money and effort. So you want to make sure that whatever donation you're doing, whether it's money, whether it's time, whether it's goods, is useful to whomever you're giving it to. That's really important. And again, I'm also going to point out, donating responsibly and volunteering responsibly, a lot of communities have websites that will tell you what opportunities are available and who needs help and what they need. And so take a little time and Google that and try to figure out how to help in your area. And if you find something that really matters to you, then make sure that you go all in, I guess is what I want to say. Because, if it's important to you, make an effort to do well at whatever sort of donation you're doing. So I really do think these are important, and I'm going to put them up again, charitynavigator.org and give.org. Just make sure that if you are donating to a charity that's a national charity, or like some of the charities that are helping Ukraine or whatever, see if you can find out where the money goes and how it's being apportioned. And is it actually going to get to the people that really need the help? Because that's important. And if you're going to give some of your hard-earned money to a charity, you want it to do the most good it can do. So use those websites, donate responsibly. The last thing I want to talk about here, and I'm going to go for another sip of water. Sorry, guys, but talking for an hour is a little tougher than you would think sometimes. And apparently my voice wants to get all froggy today. So the last thing that I want to talk about is civil discourse. And civil discourse is this quaint idea that you can disagree with someone and not think they're a Nazi or evil or yell and scream at them or not listen to anything they say and automatically discount everything they say because they don't agree with you. Civil discourse is this lovely idea that I can agree, I can think what I think, and you can think what you think, and they can be completely different things. And we can have a civil, calm discussion about why we disagree. And it isn't necessarily to try and change the other person's mind, it's just to understand. And yeah, this is harder to do than just saying, well, you're full of crap and I don't want to listen to you. And it's harder to do than rolling your eyes at people and going, how can you believe that? Or how can you support that issue or that person? But the benefit is we actually can maybe get some things done. There's also, Eric Campbell talks about this a lot, the principle of charity, which is basically ascribing, I couldn't even say it, the most positive motive to your opponent, so to speak. And I like that idea too, which is I always try to go into a conversation with someone that I don't agree with the assumption that their aim is the same as mine. They're trying to make the world a better place. They just have a different idea of how that needs to happen. And if I can look at it from that perspective, then I'm not as defensive when we're talking. I'm not as argumentative. I'm not as angry. I may be more open to listening because I believe at the bottom of everything, we're both trying to reach the same goal. We just have different ideas of how to get there. And I think that's something that, and yes, Cindy's not wrong. Sometimes it just ends in we agree to disagree. I have family members that I have those agreements with, and there are some things that we don't necessarily talk about, but we agreed to disagree, and that's fine. But if you can agree to disagree on the basis of, I don't agree with what you think, I may not agree with what you do, but I accept that you're a good person. I think that by your lights, you're trying to do good. We just disagree about what that good is and how you should do it. Now, yeah, this is a little harder than going, I don't want to talk to anybody that doesn't agree with me. Or it's harder than just immediately blowing up and going, how can you believe that? That's horrible. I don't understand it. And sometimes you will have to make the choice to just say, you know what, for the sake of harmony or for the sake of being able to have a nice Thanksgiving or whatever it is, these are the topics we can't talk about. And sometimes that's necessary, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But I think we need to learn to be able to talk to people that we don't agree with. And we need to learn to be able to have those discussions from a standpoint of fundamentally we want the same things. Kirby Hassman from Hassman Marketing did a Monday Minute was it last week or 2 weeks ago? I don't remember exactly, but where he said, start from asking the question, can we agree on this? And come up with some point where you can both say, yes, we agree on that. And then that gives you a basis to explore the issue. And it may be something as simple as, can we both agree that we're human beings? But it forms a basis for, there's something we have in common. There's something that we can both say yes to. And that makes a difference. And Cindy says, be respectful of my opinion. And yes, I think that's an important thing. Even if you don't agree with someone, you need to be respectful of their opinion. You need to be respectful of them as a human being. And yeah, it's harder to do that. I'm not going to lie. There are times when I have had discussions with people where the whole time in my head, I was going, how can you possibly believe that? Oh my God. But you try to listen, you ask questions. This is where my journalism background comes in handy, because I'm my default setting is why. Why do you think that? Why does this matter to you? Why is this important? Why are you working at it? This is an interesting question. How can one listen when it's basically a morally wrong way to believe? As in if they believe some races, religions, etc., can only be eliminated rather than be lived with and amongst. That's just hard for me. No tolerance in my view. That's a good question. And it is hard. It is hard to deal with that. And sometimes you do have to say this is just wrong. But even if you can spend some time trying to understand why they think how they think, and sometimes you're trying to understand why they think how they think so you can stop them. And that can be a goal. But I mean, I think those are the more extreme cases. I think what I was talking about more was less extreme things. Yes, prejudice is wrong. Yes, sexism is wrong. Racism is wrong. Discriminating on the basis of religion is wrong. That's just wrong. And it's hard to listen to those kind of rhetorics and not go, how the hell can you even think this? This is just wrong. But there's still a value, I think, in trying to listen and learn, even if it's so you know what they're saying, so you can ably combat that. But it's a good question. And I don't know honestly, I wish I had a better answer for you, Carolyn, but I really don't. Sometimes it's just flat wrong. But even then, you have to have the discussions. If we don't talk about these things, if we don't talk about why it's wrong to be racist or sexist, or why it's wrong to discriminate on the basis of religion or the basis of sexual preference, if we don't tell these stories, if we don't ask these questions, then we never fix anything. And secrecy is deadly in a lot of cases, because the less we talk about this stuff and the less we call it out and the less we say it's wrong and the less we ask why people still think that way, then the more that those kind of ideologies gain power. And maybe that's the answer, is even if they're being complete and utter racist, sexist, bigoted jerks, the more we talk about it and the more we call it out and the more we ask why, the more we learn how to help people not be that way in the future. That's my feeling on it. So this was your little how to change the world lecture for today. I think it's important. I hope you all got something out of it. Not sure what next week is going to be. There may be a guest. There may not be a guest. It may be just me rambling on about some topic again. Thank you to everybody who was here today. I hope you got something out of this. It's snowing. Ooh. And I hope your weather is nicer than it is here, because it's snowing here right now. Yay. And I will see you all next week. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. Bye.